concussion or this hurts. That guys are always getting hurt when there's a tough practice that they don't want to finish. And I think that was what my dad's message was. Don't try to get out of a practice and use one of these excuses.
Don't be a pussy.
Yeah, exactly. Like these other kids are doing. And I was at practice one day, and I was older, so I had driven myself. I went with my buddy Carl, and I got hit in the head. We were doing Ironman, which means one guy, so you're in a group, one guy stays in, wrestles everybody, then another guy comes in, wrestles everybody. And that's how we did it. This club I was at, we did that for about an hour, and I got hit in the head, and then apparently I was just standing there for the next hour. And then it was time to do conditioning, and Oscar told everybody to get down. We were doing push-ups, and I wasn't doing them. And I finally got down, and I was doing them after he yelled at me in front of everybody, and I turned to Carl, and I said, "How did we get here?" And Carl said, "You drove." And I said, "I drove us here?" And I had this real weird conversation, and Carl realized something was up and got one of the coaches, said, "Hey, he's been goofy for 45 minutes. He's been standing in a corner by himself, and now he's asking me weird questions." So I went upstairs into the coach's office. I laid down. They put an ice pack on my head, and I mean, it was like instantly I was back. That was all you had to do. And I went home and I told my dad, "Hey, I had a concussion. This is a real thing. This is not a made-up term. I just had one tonight and didn't know how I got to practice." And apparently I stood and ignored coaches and never went in on my goes for almost an hour. To which my dad did not believe and thought that I had pushed out of a practice. But I didn't. I swear this happened. And then I was so fat. I was 16, 17, 18, whatever that was. Fast forward to just a number of years ago, I got headbutt in practice with my teammate Josh Bennett. And I remember it. I remember getting hit, but I thought a concussion, like you lost consciousness. No, I was very aware of both. I remember hitting Josh's head, and later that day, I can't remember what the tie-in was, but somebody had told me that they saw me up at the shopping center in my hometown. We've got one little shopping center where everybody buys their groceries and everything, and they said that I was up there in a bathrobe. And I have a buddy that owns a liquor store, Troy, and I'll pop in and talk to Troy all the time when I'm up there. If he's working, I'll pop in. And so I called Troy the next day when this had been brought to my attention. I said, "Hey, did I come in and see you yesterday and I was wearing a bathrobe?" I knew this did not happen, but I was told that it did. And Troy said, "Yeah, not only did you do that, but you stayed for a really long time and you wouldn't move. You were in the way. You were at the front where the cash, I had other customers and we had to work around you." And I just apologized. I said, "Troy, I don't know anything about this. I hit heads with my teammate Josh. I don't know anything about this. Somebody told me." So those are my two experiences with concussion. I guess my message to you is nothing other than if somebody out there is listening and their father is like mine and thinks it's an excuse to get out of practice, concussions are real. They do happen.
It is so scary. We're seeing more and more evidence now with the NFL, and surely we'll see it within MMA too, even the sport of wrestling. I don't know if you remember Matt Lindland. Maybe he fought in the UFC, maybe Nico Vitale. I could be messing up his opponent. But Matt body locked him, threw him, hit his head on the mat, and that's how Matt lost the fight.
Yes, and it was Vitale.
Yeah.
Matt Hughes used to go to the arena early, and he would walk around the ring. And the reason he would do that is the ring had hard spots. And don't forget, the ring is made out of iron and metal, titanium, actually.
In this case with Matt, I checked the ring with him before, and there was a little space missing. You could feel the dip in the canvas where the foam was gone.
And they just covered it with a tarp. Mm-hmm. So at any rate, I mean, that is a real thing. They have hard spots. It's made out of titanium, the octagon specifically. And I know the guy that welds it. I know the guy that made it. I went to the fab shop where he does it. I know exactly what this thing's made out of. And Matt Hughes would walk it early and find those spots. Matt Hughes was well known for picking people up in a double leg, and then he would go place them. And Joe Rogan and Goldberg would go crazy because they always thought he was taking a guy. Yeah, they always thought he was taking a guy to his corner. Oh, Matt's bringing him close to his corner so he can get instruction. He wasn't. He was taking him to the hard spot that he had found.
Mean.
But it was also brilliant. I mean, he also used everything he could around him. He found this early that, hey, there's different bumps in the ring. He remembered where they were. He picked his opponents up, and then he would drive them right down into that hard spot. And most guys didn't get up from Matt Hughes' double. But what the fans didn't know is it wasn't just that double and Matt's pressure on top. He was driving them into a predetermined hard spot of the octagon.
He redefines octagon awareness, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Matt, I'm glad that you say that, because Matt should get credit for this. He should not get looked down on. He used everything that he could. It was a smart move. It was premeditated. And then he had to execute said double leg, pick guys up and take them to the specific spot that he wanted. So I remember when the announcers were, "Oh, there's Matt Hughes. He's so smart. He's bringing him to his corners." No. He's bringing him to the hard spot. And there was a brilliance to it.
Yeah, I mean, you have a son. Would you let him spar at an early age?
Yes, I would. Yes, it would need to be very controlled. But that would be even in his adult life. I'm a believer in headgear. I'm a believer in big gloves, good shin pads, and good partners. Not the dick in the room that's looking to fight. I don't want him to fight in the practice room. I want him to practice.
I talked to a parent the other day. Her son is a freshman, played freshman football, and she goes, "Oh yeah, he's already had 3 concussions. One when he was 10."
Oh.
Another in junior high school, and one this year. And I had to tell her, I said, do you think he's going to make it to the NFL? And clearly, no, he couldn't play in college. If you don't have a way of making life-changing money for you and your family or your future family, no way. Go find something else to do. If you need combat sports, then go do jiu-jitsu. But do not let anyone punch you in the head or hit you in the head. It makes 0 sense.
I agree with that. I fully agree. Now, to go back to what you just said, was she saying it like in a bragging way? Like, yeah, he's so aggressive, he's even had concussions?
It wasn't like that. She was more just stating a fact. I dropped a hammer on her, too. I said, listen, that's your son. If you don't think he's going to do this, he's got no business being in that sport. What's the point?
Yeah.
So you can play high school football?
Yeah. No, I hear you on that. It is a real thing. You know, we're learning more about it. We didn't used to. You know, one of the toughest guys that I was ever around in my athletic career is a guy named Eric Webb. We were teammates at the University of Oregon. He beat the national champion. He beat the number 2, the number 4, the number 6, and the number 8 guy. And he had to pull out of the conference tournament right before nationals. And all those guys I just named went on at NCAA's 10 days later, and that's how they finished, including the champion. He beat that year's champion 3-1 at the Midlands, redheaded kid out of Illinois. And he couldn't continue because he was getting concussions. And he's like, look, it's just not worth it. And the doctors grabbed him. And this is early. You know, they would maybe do that now. But don't forget, this was in the year 2001. And that was before it had come out with the NFL. And, you know, the MMA leaders have been very proactive about concussions. But this was a different time. This was just before that. And he still was smart enough to know, no matter what it means, even if it's 10 more days and 5 more matches, I am not going to risk it.
It speaks to him, though, right? Because you could tell a lot of guys. There's people right now who fight professionally who have no chance of making any type of significant money. Yet they still go in there and they spar every week. They still go in there and they have fights. For what?
Yeah.
For what?
Yeah, and with today's evidence that we have, it's very hard for me to understand this, but a lot of guys are new to the sport and they haven't kept up on some of this evidence. But I know guys, Ryan, that will go in and spar without headgear and with smaller gloves. Instead of 16-ounce gloves, we're going to wear 12-ounce gloves. Or instead of 12-ounce gloves, we're going to wear 4-ounce gloves, with the idea that they're going to strengthen their head and their chin, and they want to take those shots in practice. And it's a really simple logic for me. But apparently it's not a really simple for others because it gets lost on so many people. You cannot strengthen your head and your chin and your ability to take shots. It's not like iron where the more you sharpen it, the better it gets. It's the other way. The more shots you take.
I haven't heard people say that's why I'm doing this. And this is the funny thing about combat sports, and especially MMA and boxing, is that you have to know most people have never really been hit before. If you hit 99% of people out there, they turn away and go, nope, that's not for me, which is the healthy, normal thing to do. When people see someone who can successfully go compete at a high level in a cage, that is a very weird, rare skill and trait to have. It's not, what's normal is you to curl up or run away. That's the normal response to it all. So you have to find this weird balance of going, okay, I know that I'm going to do this damage to my body. I know that potentially I'm going to damage my brain, and here's the trade-off that I'm willing to give for that. For most people, the trade-off makes no sense. If you're getting smashed and hammered in fights, if you're getting knocked out in training, or your head hurts for 2 days after sparring, and you're not dominating everyone in the room, if you're not winning fights like Connor does, or any of these high-level guys, or in the case of you, unless someone is writing you an enormous check, what on earth are you doing in there? It is not for most people most of the time. And if you know someone like that, or if you love someone in that situation, you got to have that hard talk. It's like the one that Joe Rogan had with Brendan Schaub, who took him aside and said, hey, listen, man, you're not going to be a champion. There's other things to do in your life. You see this in MMA all the time. You have these guys who stay in here too long, and all of a sudden 28 turns into 34, 36, 37. Now you're 37, 38. You haven't had a job yet. You're still training hard. You haven't been compensated enough to make up for that. That's okay. I know I'm going to sacrifice now, but the next 20 years of my life are going to be much easier as a result. And my kids can have these opportunities, and my wife can do this, whatever it is. I don't know, man. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm 45 now. Maybe I'm getting a little bit older in how I view things, but I don't know.
Yeah, Dana White was asked about this. And you'll remember, and there was a movie made, Will Smith starred in it, Concussion. It was brought to the forefront about how Roger Goodell wasn't as open to the idea and the scientific proof of concussion, and even attempted to deny it for a little bit. And Dana was asked about this, and as a leader of industry, I remember his answer, and I really appreciated it. And he didn't know. He didn't know all the science, and he wasn't a doctor, and the stuff's still being done, and nobody has the full answer yet. But I remember what Dana said. Dana said, well, I think we can all agree it's not good for you. And I thought, what a relief to hear somebody in a leadership role just answer a question honestly.
Dana White walks that talk when there's not a microphone and a camera in his face too. And I've known a case where he said, nope, that fight is too dangerous for this opponent, based on their prior fights. I know this has happened. And he's another guy, too, if you never would force you to take a fight. And he'd always say, if you're talking retirement, then you need to retire. These are compassionate things in a sport where there's not a whole lot of compassion and caring in the sport of mixed martial arts. Your job is to go beat someone else up in a cage. It's not a feel-good sport in that sense. And he has walked that talk publicly and privately as well. He gets it.
Yeah, he does. And it was just such an honest answer. And there was nothing I could do when he said it. Like, if you wanted to, devil's advocate, there was nothing you could do. That was just the truth. Hey, I think we can all agree this isn't good for you. And then as far as what it does to the brain, let's spend some money and some time in research. Let's do all of those things and leave that up to the experts. But